What is the first point that we hold?
Solar
plexus. Okay, so we have our solar plexus and then we have the pulses. You can see that I'm just closing my eyes because this is what I normally do. Yeah, the pulse is so faint, slightly jumpy on the right side. Solar plexus is squishy. Pulse is getting a little bit stronger, more even bilaterally. So there's good change as well. So the body is willing to work with us. Yeah. But we just want to look at that. You know, first impressions are really important. So as we hold solar plexus and adrenal and take our first pulse assessment, you know, what is the body trying to say right off the bat? You know, if the body is saying, I'm tired, I'm depleted, I'm slightly agitated, but I'm willing to change. You know, that speaks volumes. Okay. Moving to the adrenal. So finding that proximal head of the first metatarsal, swooping in between the proximal head of the first and second metatarsal on the plantar surface, just medial to that plantar tendon. Again, holding pulse for about 30 seconds. Adrenals seem okay. They're a little bit overactive, they're a little bit puffy, but not crazy. Okay, and that's how we start the session. Now we're going to go into our 6 relaxation techniques. And these are Sloppy Susan, nothing against anybody named Susan. Or as Hagar would say, Hagar Bassis, who's a reflexologist over in London, but she's also an amazingly beautiful Greek lady. She tells her students this is called slap the boobies. Because we're on the chest reflex when we do it.
Right.
Okay. Then we do our military train, which is basically just an ankle mobilization technique. And then calf massage, reaching up behind the knee. Just some squeeze, pull, release. The tissue is flaccid. It's wet. It's not as strong as I'd like it to be. Just first observations. Then we do our push-pull, where we're leaning in and we're pulling back, creating a nice wave throughout the metatarsals. And you can see how we're basically just assessing the way the foot moves. Yeah. And we take a little bit of our cream, gloss the plantar surface of the heel, and do a heel rotation. And then last but not least, we'll do a knuckle roll on the medial arch, just rocking up the spinal reflexes. Which I can already feel that back stuff, right in lower thoracic, T12 to L1 for sure. Yeah. Okay. So our first reflex area that we're going to walk is the spine. We're going to start just above the sacral reflexes. Yep, and it's already starting to twitch. So I'm going to take it super slow. Super slow, baby steps. We're thumb walking, and then halfway through, we're going to switch our leverage and walk to just below the bunion area. Okay. Do it again. See that spasm? See that twitch? That was good. Yeah, it's right in through there. So we're just gonna. This is it.
Just a little color, different color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much changed? It's got white and red.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the circulation is a little bit different. So this is a concept that I'm going to talk about in the second book a little bit deeper. But the idea of the secondary stimulation to clear out the nerves. Lynn Booth, who does vertical reflex technique. We talked about this, and I didn't know what I was doing until she told me that she does it too. So very much what we talked about already, but just the idea that when you hold a point and a point is overactive, you can create a secondary stimulus to help flush the nerve channel and to send a greater impulse and basically distract or release the point of congestion. So I'm turn that into a bimanual hold, so holding two specific points. Sometimes the points correspond to meridians, sometimes they don't. It's just where the body says that I need to be at a particular time. And then the point released, and so I'm moving on. But I can't go far because it's super congested. So I'm going to hold that point again. This time the body says, nope, just chill. So I'm going to just chill. There's a nice throbbing underneath my thumb, but the tissue is staying rather calm. So it's not kicking me out, but it is letting me know that there's stuff here. So I'm just going to hold the point. Oh, tissue shifting, starting to spasm and twitch a little bit. Oh. Okay, starting to twitch and spasm a little bit more. Is it calming down? We shall see. Yeah, it's crazy. There's just so much. Yeah, and it's emptying.
Wow.
It's emptying.
Yeah. You can see that.
Almost done. The point is slowly starting to fill back up. And there we go. Okay, and we're moving on.
That's very cool.
And we're only on our second pass, so. But I always start with the spine regardless of if the client has spinal issues. This is the first reflex area that I walk. And actually the points aren't jumping out nearly as much as they were the third pass, so we're going to let those cook. Okay? After the spinal reflexes, then we're going to go to the toes. We're going to work each toe 3 times with a nice rotation / thumb walking / massage. Just clearing each toe of any excess tension, palpating for points. For those of you who remember your vertical zone training from the foot reading class, each toe is very significant. It tells us a lot about the different body systems and how they're affecting the head and neck, which will give us good insight into how that's nasty. We're going to hold that. The fourth toe is slightly off kilter, so the toe is leaning ever so slightly medially, and so we're going to hold that. You okay? Okay.
Yeah, I got my box of tissues.
Okay. which is influence of lower back and pelvis. So just the idea of like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You always start with the
Always start with the foot toe.
Do you always start with the right foot?
Yes. If you start with the left foot, the client spontaneously combusts. It's a proven fact. Studies have been done. FDA approves. FDA does not approve this technique. Don't come after me, FDA. But just the idea that, you know, you like if you start with the big toe, the client's not going to die, you know. But this is just the way that I do it because it's a natural flow. We walk the spine with one hand, so we switch hands to make sure that the right hand doesn't do all of the work. You know, you'll see me throughout the routine constantly switching back and forth. Now we're going to do a big toe routine. We're going to walk the different sections of the big toe. There's some grossness around the base of the neck, so we're going to hold that along with a secondary point. Facial itch as a response. Excellent.
Mm. Is that secondary point something specific, or is your hand just around?
No, it's just it's holding a point that I'm being told to hold.
Okay.
So the area you worked on the base of the foot
Uh-huh.
has stayed nice and pink now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's stuff that we look for is, you know, as we go through these reflex areas, what's changing. Okay. And we're going to walk the plantar surface of the proximal phalanx, then the distal surface of the proximal phalanx. Or the plantar surface of the, hold on. I'm getting super confused. The plantar surface of the proximal phalanx, that neck reflex of the big toe. Now the plantar surface of the distal phalanx, that big toe pad or the head reflexes. And there's something in there as well. So we're just going to hold that. A lot of little points, you know, nothing crazy. The back was really the big one that we found. And that point just disappeared underneath my pressure, so that's fine. And then over the top.
What is your pressure?
2 to 3 out of 10. Not intense at all. And so there's another neck point, so we're just going to hold that point.
How's that pressure to you?
I nodded my head, yeah,
Okay.
2 or 3.
Yeah. The pressure that I use is generally light until I get to a point, and then I vary the pressure based on what's needed. Like just now, I found myself kind of gripping the neck reflex a little bit too hard. The body started to defend against me, so I lightened up ever so slightly.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, it's the dialogue, it's the conversation. Her foot is now starting to get freezing cold, which is very, very interesting to me. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel any colder, like doesn't feel more cold.
Yeah. It's, yeah, the cold is starting to set in. Yeah, like super cold. That's really weird.
Is the color changing in the tail?
What?
Is the color changing at all? Is it getting more pale or anything?
Not that I can see.
Oh,
So is
interesting.
that a release?
It's just a shift. You know, some clients during a session, their temperature fluctuates. So some clients will come in and we're working these points and then they feel like super hot, like they turn into volcano mode. And then sometimes clients get really cold. There's no real like, yeah, it's cold. So that kind of stuff is like, it's weird, but it's normal because the body is just coming back into balance. We have no way of asking the body to do any of those things, but the body does them because it's what's needed.
See, and so for me, it would be, my hand would be what was feeling cold, not the foot.
Gotcha.
So my question is, was it her foot?
It
that
was
you-
the foot
it
that
was
was
her
feeling
foot,
cold.
Okay.
So now we're doing some lymphatic, which isn't really super impressive on somebody who has a normal foot, but if you have clients who, you know, have massive amounts of swelling in the ankles, a little bit of lymphatic pumping does wonders. Gonna do a nice metatarsal shake, open up the bones before we go a little bit deeper in between the valleys. Oh, that's stuck. Yeah, that's fun. That's really stuck. So we're just gonna hold there and we're gonna kind of twist that bone a little bit.
Is that same zone?
Yeah, zone 4. What's going on? No, done? Okay. Shake the third. Shake the second and the first. Okay. Now we're going to walk down the dorsal valleys. So using the fingers, we're going to walk down each valley once. There's a point, so we're going to hold that point. Feels like a hypertonic kind of bubble. Not necessarily a knot. Doesn't feel like a knot, like a hard knot, but it definitely feels like a fluid pocket. Yeah. And we're holding. Oh, and there's a little bit of a static underneath my index finger. Leg twitched ever so slightly. Bunion area is starting to relax.
It's static like a pulse, because I just had it wasn't like a heart palpitation, but it was like a boom.
Yeah, it was more like an electrical
Okay.
sensation. And we are very close to the heart reflex as well, yeah, because that's bunion space. So just the idea that, I felt an electrical response, client felt a stimulation in that area, that's how it works, but I didn't need to know that because the body told me. Yeah, so walk down each of those valleys once. That feels like it needs to open. So we're actually going to hold the dorsal ankle and we're going to do a little bit of pulling. A little bit of traction, a little bit of love, a little bit of get out. Oop, there it is. And a point has been revealed. I know. I'm sorry, everybody. I won't be able to. I'll answer the questions in the comments later. Okay, this point's starting to become a little bit more messy. So we gotta.
Walk through that. What does that feel like, messy?
So as Julie Beth Messy. The idea of. I thought it was just going to be a simple point. I felt like it just needed a little bit of pulling to straighten itself out. As the point started to surface, it's starting to talk to me a lot more. It's starting to pull me into a different aspect of the tendon. Like right now I'm right on a tendon line. The point is starting to physically heat up under my finger. Like there's a lot happening that I didn't necessarily intend to happen. Okay, and we're done. Oh, no, we're not. Finger's not moving. Okay. Finger is now officially glued to the spot. Fingertip is starting to go numb with heat. Like literally, fingertip is starting to go numb. Like we stumbled across something, and now the body's not letting me go, and that's okay. What?
One fingertip?
One fingertip. The rest are along for the ride. My index finger is literally like stuck to the spot. Can't feel it anymore. All
What's
I can
that
feel
pressure
is
to you?
I feel his finger there. Everything that he said so far has been just spot on. But there's no pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, but it's messy.
Talk us through that.
Well, when I was a child, that kind of stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's
I don't
done.
have time for that.
So just the sometimes and now she's perspirating. Now the foot is starting to get like physically moist. So that's a good thing. Like this whole area just started to like massively sweat, which is beautiful.
Aren't you in the lymph zone there too? With the...
Yeah, very, very more inguinal.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, same stuff. Yeah, so with stuff like that, when I hold an unintentional deep point, I like to give it a little bit of love, like a little bit of just rubbing, like thank you so much for doing all that. But then we go right back to the routine.
Where he finds more nasty.
So we knew that the low back was going to be trouble. The degree to which something is trouble is always, a big question mark, because a client comes in and says, yeah, I've had a little bit of trouble there, and all you see is just massive amounts of gnarled tissue, and then some clients are like, yeah, this is a real issue, and you go in and you find nothing. So every case is slightly different, every case is very unique. This case is proving to be, fun. This point also in the low back area, not producing any heat. It's just having me rest just at the surface. I'm not going nearly as deep as I was on the other one. My fingertip is flat. I don't need to be pointed. There was a pulse underneath my finger.
But it feels deeper.
Oh, it feels deeper. That's interesting.
It feels like there's more pressure. Again, it doesn't hurt. It's nothing like that. But it feels heavier.
Yeah, and I'm not using half as much pressure as I did, on the point that we were just on.
And that's the index finger again,
That's the
right?
index finger. Yeah, my other fingers are just kind of going along for the ride. It's primarily index. Okay, now we've got some throbbing of the vessel going on, because I'm right outside that vessel.
Do you ever stop before you actually feel completed?
No, I have to follow the point through. And then the point released me, so now I'm moving on. And when I say the point released me, it literally feels like you got sucked into a point, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can move. Okay, cool. And we're back to that stuck. We're back to the stuckness right over that proximal head of the fourth metatarsal. And so now I'm doing a little bit of a pump and a jostle over that space. Ew, gross. What is that?
Nothing personal.
Nothing, never personal. And this is not something that we would ever tell to a client. But this is inner dialogue. Inner dialogue that I'm able to vocalize. Ooh, did you feel that? That nice crack? Yeah, that was good. That was good. I liked that crack. That was good. Yeah, it's so twisted.
Literally.
Yeah, I'm closing my eyes to increase my ability to feel, which is kind of like if you've ever seen the comic book series Daredevil, like closing off one sense heightens the others. But then I'm holding this point that just doesn't want to move, and it's right on that bone articulation, and I'm just pumping the bone back and forth. Just utilizing the bones as leverage to manipulate the soft tissue. Okay, starting to loosen a little bit. Yeah, and then we get some openness. Okay. Yeah. That's what we want.
So this might be weird, but so before it was open, it was just I'm seeing colors, it's just kind of gray. But then, as you said that it was starting to open, colors started to come in, more blues and purples.
Nice. Lovely.
Very nice.
And if a client told us that, like, we would say, "Oh yeah, that's great. I don't care." Because
They don't care, they care.
Right, they care. And it's important, but at the same time, I'm the audience cares. My goal is not necessarily to validate or invalidate a client's response. So if they feel pain, okay, yeah. If they feel nothing, okay. If they see colors, okay. If they're wondering what the hell you're doing, okay. You know, I'm not here to say yes or no to any particular experience because my dialogue is really with the body. Okay. So now we do finish up with another metatarsal shake, and we go to the plantar surface of the ball of the foot into chest-lung territory.
So my client would say, what did you stop for?
Right.
What's going on there?
I'll tell you at the end of the
Okay.
session. Yep. Because I would prefer not to give the play-by-play. I really don't. I really don't want to waste my time and my attention. Yeah, because the body and I are having this conversation. It's between me and the tissues. The client, although they are the one paying for the service, it's really about me paying attention to the tissues at that point and not trying to say, you know, oh, this is the heart area, oh, this is the chest lung area, oh, this is that, you know. Especially when I don't know what the other side feels like. I'm only giving them half the story at that point. So back to that idea of lock picking. It feels like with this point, that was fun. It feels like with this point, I can't just hold it. I have to have my hand wrapped around her ankle in this way in order to deactivate the point. If my hand isn't there, then the point won't respond. So it feels like I'm both holding that point and my hand is holding something. Yeah, but they're working together in tandem in concert. If one was doing one thing but the other not doing anything, then it wouldn't be successful, and then the point releases, and we move on. What? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much. Yeah, feel free to move those and take a seat on the table. Just don't break the table. Okay. So we finish walking the horizontal zone 2 area in the chest lung space, and then we move into the upper digestive area.
So you want the dorsal and the plantar
In the plantar.
on both sides at the same, before you go to the next? Or, like I normally go around the ankle.
Oh, gotcha.
You know,
I save the ankle and the heel for last, because they
Okay.
tend to be the most problematic.
okay.
They tend to be the tightest tissue, they tend to be the most gnarly tissue, and so, yeah, I save those for last so the body has a chance to relax. Okay, so right now I'm very much over the gallbladder, and I need to hold a secondary point on the inner thigh, so I'm holding those points and seeing what happens. Or I'm just got tingly. Tissue isn't really responding underneath my thumb. It's starting to let me in a little bit. Secondary point is responding and tonifying. The muscle tissue is actually starting to surround my middle finger up on her shin. Static response in my index finger on the left hand. Point is taking me in just a little bit deeper. Very slow shifts, but very deep shifts on this point. And we're done. Okay. And then moving again to that last horizontal zone of the upper digestive. Switching hands, going vertically.
Trying to follow the protocol that's in our book.
So right now we're in the upper digestive reflexes.
Got it. What is the distal metatarsal head shake?
The distal metatarsal head shake was right after zone 2.
Right, it didn't,
Yeah.
I miss it.
Maybe.
It's on the video.
It's on the video. There you go. Then we go to lower digestive, walking the digestive reflexes. Same thing, 3 horizontal passes, which we'll break down and all do together, just showing you what it looks like. We're stopping just before the plantar tendon because that's really important. We don't walk the plantar tendon horizontally because it's a vertical tissue direction. That's weird, so we're gonna hold that. So it felt like a hollowness, an indentation, a weakness in the tissues. So we're just going to hold that spot and see what happens. Very cold tissue. Very cold tissue. Oh, couple twitches. You see the twitching of this leg? It's not really doing much for me now, so I'm gonna move on. So chains go vertical, continuing to clear the lower digestive. Ooh, there is stuff in here. So we're just gonna hold. Is all of this making sense so far? Do we see how the protocol works? It's basically just a routine, a format, and then the points are held as you go, based on what you feel. Applying static pressure, and then adapting to what you find. Okay, then we go back up to the toes.
You're doing the same thing you did before on the
Same
toes?
thing on the toes. We work the toes twice because they're so sensitive. Anybody who has ever stubbed a toe can attest to this. But the toes themselves are also really good indicators of whether or not tissues have relaxed. Yeah. So if we go back to walk the toes a second time and we notice that stuff isn't as calm as it should be, yeah, if the toes haven't responded in a particular way, we know that something's stuck.
Do you do all 5 zones in the toes?
Just the big toe when we walk vertically.
So you just do a couple swipes on
Yeah,
each toe unless
so
you find
3
something?
3 passes on each
3
toe,
passes.
unless we find something. And then the big toe we have the 5. In the big toe routine, we start by walking the medial surface of the big toe, which is the neck reflex. Then we go to the plantar surface of the proximal phalanx, walk up those 5 vertical sections. Walk the distal phalanx, plantar surface, and those 5 vertical sections. Much clearer the second time around, which is what we like to see. And then over the top, walking down the lateral surface of the proximal phalanx. 3 times. Now we go into the heel. Okay. So we're going to start with an Achilles tendon effleurage. Get everything nice and juicy. There's a lot of swelling around the hips. A lot of fluid retention there.
A lot of what tension?
Fluid retention.
Fluid.
Then we're going to walk the medial surface of the calcaneus, which is that sacral spine. 3 times. I mean, it's okay. It's not super great, but it's fine. There are no points here. Then we walk the lateral surface of the spine, which is all that glute territory. And here we have some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to stay here. We're just going to hold. We're going to do a little bit of a vibration.
Did you notice when there's a release, sometimes you get the response yourself in another way too? Like, I sometimes notice like I take a breath.
Yeah.
You know?
But I really want to look for the client's response. I mean, my response is important, but it's not nearly as important as the body. Oh, and the body said stop, so we're stopping.
So if someone has a big and heavy foot, can you support it with your other hand?
You can, totally, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What happens it's just like pushing on metal?
Two things with that. One, just because an area is tight and dense doesn't mean that they don't feel it.
Correct.
Yeah. But then also breathing change. But then also the idea that, and this is a variant, so I would normally walk the outside calcaneus 3 times and then I would stop, but I need to clear this area a little bit more. So I'm walking it in a different tissue direction to find another point, which I might not find. We'll see. But then secondary with the what's it called, with really, really dense tissue, it's protecting something. Yeah, so I treat it just like I do any other tissue, except I'm on guard for what it's protecting against. Then we're going to go into an ankle rotation, walking the hip sciatic reflex. Yeah, and her body's fighting me on that, so we're gonna hold that point. So we're holding a point right at the posterior surface of the lateral malleolus.
If it's fighting you, why are you staying?
It was fighting the rotation. Yeah, so it's defensive in that area, but it's fine. Like, the tissue isn't fighting me. It was just the body wasn't liking the range of motion. So I'm gonna dial down the range of motion ever so slightly.
I know he doesn't care.
Right.
That ankle, both my ankles, I'm constantly trying to crack it, or like it's just like it's not.
Yeah.
It's not quite right, but I know he doesn't care.
Right. And that's probably something that, if we were to talk about that post-session, the client would then say, oh, I noticed you stopped around the ankles. And I'm like, yeah, there was a little bit of stiffness there. Oh, I try to pop and crack those all the time. That's how the dialogue would go.
Now, what if they were wincing in a thing?
Then back off.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that last little rotation,
Yeah.
a little something,
Yeah.
because, if I'm awake at this point,
Right.
I would want somebody to wail on that,
Yeah.
psychologically it feels good, but it's not, it doesn't take a lot back there.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It's a very hypersensitive area. And there's a little crack that keeps pulling up, so I'm actually going to twist the foot with my left hand and pull the foot with my right hand, creating a nice little traction of the ankle in that area. And she's naturally trying to help, and that's okay.
And I felt it like I was letting go.
Yeah. It is. Oh no, my thumb is doing nothing right now. My fingers are what's working on the other side.
Do you want me
You just can't see it because you're over there.
At least you were right.
Okay. Your thumb doesn't seem to be doing much work. It's not. Right. Okay.
That's right, you're right.
Okay. Yeah, there is this point right in through here that we just need to take a little bit of extra attention to. So again, deviating from the technique ever so slightly just to find a point. Ooh, and then we gotta pull down slightly. Oh, back off. Yeah, static in the fingertips. Oop, back off. Index finger's going numb. Index finger's starting to get painful. Not like in the joint, but like it's a nerve sensation. It's not, oh, and then the pain's fading.
Do you sometimes have to stop for your own discomfort?
No, never. The body will never push me to my limit. The only person who tends to do that is ourselves.
Even when your fingers can get cramped?
If it's cramping, that means you're doing something wrong.
Okay.
That's what I would argue.
It's information.
But if you do 4 of these in a row,
I
It's
normally
not
do
even-
5 of these.
there's no, okay.
Part of that is body mechanics, just being very aware. Part of that is going a little bit lighter in touch,
Right.
and also my depth comes from the individual points that I work. It doesn't come from my thumb walk. My thumb walk is light, but my points might be deep. Yeah, but you can apply more pressure with a static hold because you have leverage, as opposed to thumb walking every single time with a 10 out of 10 in pressure. That's going to blow out the joint. That's repetitive stress. Yeah, but you can go as deep as you want on a static point because the body is locked into position and is using appropriate momentum.
But you could also put 2 pillows on your lap in order to have your elbows leaning on something. If it is a long hold, and then you find that, especially with my clients, they're really changing things around.
Yeah.
Maybe long holds.
Whatever you like. That's still not okay.
How do you document this?
How do I what?
Document this?
I don't.
Okay. So when you, well, and that makes sense, because basically it doesn't matter from session to session,
Right.
because you're taking the body.
Because it's a new
where
client
they-
every single time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, if I document with my notes everything that I find, I'm now biased the next time a client comes in.
Yeah.
So what do you document?
I document when a client comes in, the amount of time that they come in for, and their contact information. They fill out a health history form and they tell me what their concerns are, but I treat every client like a new client every single time that they come and see me. You know,
So every time they'll fill out a form?
No.
Okay.
Every time I'm just like, what's going on?
Okay.
How you doing? You know, not saying, how's that shoulder, or how are your digestive issues today, but what's going on? How are you feeling? You know, and that's really, and this looks rather aggressive. I normally don't do this. This is like the first time I've ever really like shown this on video as well. But the joints need to be mobilized ever so slightly. So we're doing a little bit of mobilization.
Doesn't feel aggressive at all.
Yeah, it doesn't feel aggressive. It just looks very aggressive. It looks like I'm kind of, wringing out her foot, and I am, but it's not intense.
And you have a gentle touch, though.
Yeah,
Your whole touch is gentle.
yeah, it's supposed to be.
Look, it
Yeah.
is. And so some people don't have that.
Right.
And I mean, Dr. Manzanares is someone who doesn't have a gentle,
True.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
so,
More like super.
Okay, so last two areas, we're gonna do cuboid notch. So we palpate for the proximal head of the fifth metatarsal, then we go up the triangle, down the back of the triangle, and across the bottom of the triangle.
And once again, so that's the glutes where you are right now?
So this is the leg. So knee reflex at the proximal head, quadriceps on the ascending, which is congested, hamstrings on the descending, which is terribly weak, and then calves on the plantar surface, which is fine. And I'll do that 3 times. But we're going to do a little bit of extra quad work in here. Where is it? Yeah, something like that. Okay.
How do you pick your secondary hold place?
It's a little bit more woo-woo. Unfortunately, I can't really describe how I do it. It's just I press a point and the body says, press here. And so I press there. There's really no rhyme or reason. It's just me and the body have a rapport. And I know, like, when I press a point, I literally get an image in my head of, it would be good if you did this. I'm like, thank you, body. I will do that for you. And that's kind of how we do it.
so it's a matter of listening,
Listening.
feeling, listening, however you receive information. from
Right.
the body.
Yeah.
Like being open to that, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and not expecting.
Yeah.
Like I don't expect to have a secondary point,
Right.
possibly the first time I'm doing this.
Exactly.
But I do expect that it will come.
Right. And that's another, and with this secondary point afterwards, it released me, and now I need to do a little bit of kneading in that space because that's what's appropriate. And I like, when I first started doing secondary point holds, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, this is weird. I don't like this. I can't teach this. How am I gonna do this? And it's just the idea that it's a deeper part of the work, and you're kind of learning it as I'm learning it. But that's part of the evolution of the craft.
I think in some ways too, it's giving yourself permission to open up to that, as opposed to going.
Very true.
I noticed you're also simple little nothing, but I'm going over her pants instead of having her
Right.
roll them up or somehow.
Yeah.
And is that a normal thing for you?
Yeah, whenever I roll up my pants, it always pinches the nerve in the back of my knee. It's just something that no matter if I have, sometimes a reflexologist will roll my pants up for me, and they'll do it too tight, or even when I try my hardest not to roll it to where it pinches, it always pinches. So if a client wants to roll up their pants and they have it, fine. But if they're wearing like jeans or something that has a bulkier material, I won't tell them to roll up their pants. I'll work over it.
I do that too.
Yeah. Okay. So we're at a sciatic point.
Beeswax from grapeseed gets on the pants then from your hands?
I mean, I'm using so little of it. Yeah. It might, like, on a black work pant, it might show up if the light hits it right, but no. I'm not, like, drenching myself in oil. What?
What part of that?
The sciatic nerve, walking the heel, the plantar surface of the calcaneus. The very last walk. Ooh, and this point is starting to get more active and complicated. So as I hold, now my muscles are contracting in my hands to go deeper, but her muscles are also contracting to meet the muscles in my hand. So it's like there's a forced squeeze that's happening, which is really interesting. But I'm not doing it. Like my body is almost doing it for me. Oh. intensity just kind of fell a little bit. Just getting kind of worried for a second. Thumb still won't let go though. Okay, and now we're being pulled out of the point. So that's good. Okay, and we move on. Ooh, and her foot just got very wet. Another lymphatic release, which is excellent.
You can really see it.
Yeah, you can really see it. Like my hands are just drenched in sweat. Okay. Okay. So that is plantar surface of the calcaneus, which is our very last surface, and now we're going to do our relaxation techniques to finish off that side, and then we do the exact same routine on the other. I think we spent like 35, 40 minutes on that side. Yeah, so 40, almost 45. So in a normal session, yeah, what you'll find is that one foot is very different from another. If I were to go over with a client, I would always ask permission. Yeah. But at the same time, this is demo purposes. I wouldn't be holding all these points. I wouldn't be explaining all this, you know, in a regular client session. So it normally doesn't take this long to do it. But it's just something that you need to be prepared for. Like I had one client who came in 2 weeks ago, and they were a new client, and they came in, and it was just really fascinating where the feet just would not let my hands go. And so I asked, you know, hey, you booked for an hour, but I have time for an hour and a half. Are you okay staying on the table? Which is something I rarely do. And they were like, yeah, sure, do what you gotta do. And they were like, I'm so glad we did the 90-minute because I didn't feel like you were done. Okay, this nonsense needs to stop. There's just this nasty point right in through here that just keeps clicking on the thoracic spine. So we're gonna hold that as a.
So when you say it's nasty, what are you feeling?
It just feels out of place. It feels congested. It feels potentially volatile. It feels unstable.
So even the relaxation techniques to close off that point, you feel the point.
Yeah.
The point you still work it.
Yep.
Still, okay.
Yeah, because the body is saying like, hey, this isn't done.
Do you ever identify with the actual vertebrae?
Yeah. So this is T11, T12.
So did you find that doing this knuckle walk?
Wow.
He didn't do thumb walk, he did the knuckle walk.
Yeah, the knuckle walk. Yeah. The relaxation techniques are deceptively simple. Like they're warm-up techniques, but they're still palpatory. Yeah. You guys are so silly. Okay, so this point it's not giving in, so I'm just gonna leave it. And now we go to the other side. Yeah, if a point keeps flagging you down and you keep trying to address it, and it's not working with you, chances are there's another reflex point somewhere else, either on the same foot or on the other foot, that's going to deactivate it for you. So don't give in to its lies.
I've seen people moving from left leg to right leg.
Yeah, and then back again.
Back again. What's
It depends on how they're trained. I personally address each foot completely. And sometimes if I find a lot of stuff on one side and then I go to the other foot and I'm not finding a lot, then I'll end that session and go back to the first foot and do a little bit of point work. But that's very rare. Normally I'm doing about a half hour on each foot. Yeah, for an hour session.
You start
Mary?
Yeah, always on the right.
Not behind that?
Just that's how I do it.
And I start with the left and I go back and forth. It's totally different from how I go.
Yeah, I just
And I start with a big toe before I start doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally backwards. I just the way that I do it is the way that I do it, and it's the routine that I teach. But it's not because there's not some holier than thou reason to it. Like it's just this is my format, and I encourage you, whatever your format is, just to have a format. Because again, there's a certain level of comfort that the body feels when it knows what to expect. It knows where you're going next. It knows, like, oh, after this, it's the big toe. That kind of stuff.
Do you offer a half hour? I've had a studio ask me to, like, what do you do in your half an hour?
Half hour I do towels at the end, not at the beginning and the end, which we'll do towels at the beginning and the end of the session. And then I do relaxation techniques, spine, toes, ball of foot, upper, lower digestive heel, and that's the routine.
Okay.
And then finish with the relaxation techniques, go to the other foot.
So
it's
you're leaving out,
all the ankle work, all the
Okay.
dorsal surface.
all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Lower
I mean, the
digestive.
fun stuff I'm leaving out.
Yeah.
But I'm still clearing all the zones.
Okay.
And you're working on a lot of important stuff, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that, and some clients can only afford a half-hour session. Some clients only have a half-hour time-wise. Some clients really only need a half-hour session. So it's not for us to judge and say, hey, why don't you, shame on you for only doing a half hour. I think that it's more about work with a client where they're at.
What do you charge for a half hour?
55. And then 85 for an hour, and then 115 for an hour and a half. But my rates are going to be going up first of the year as another expression of my personal boundaries for new clients only. And they will be raised significantly so that I work with the clients that I have and then start to dictate and refer out to the other therapists in my office.
So significantly as over 100?
Yeah, so my hour will be going from 85 to 125.
Good.
But again, that will, my regular prices will stay the same for people that have been seeing me for a while. So I'm not getting rid of my existing book. It's just look, I have an existing client book. I can't really take on any additional clients without compromising the schedules of the ones that I already have. So you need to make it worth my time, or go see another therapist that I've personally trained who's just as good as me, and do it that way. But if you'd like to see me, you're just gonna have to pay for it. And it breaks my heart to do that, because it's also I don't want to be one of those therapists, but that's
You're not, that's not a gouging price.
exactly. And frankly, I know therapists in my area that charge more than that, so
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, they got a weekend workshop.
I'm just getting a little feisty on the table.
She must be feeling better already.
There's Julie Beth. Knew she was in there. Okay.
Well, it's the same, it's the same in Virginia Beach.
True.
It's just, it just is.
I have clients that'll come to me, I charge $60 an hour, and they'll come to me and say, I was away at Virginia Beach for a weekend thing, and they charge $150, and it's not at all as good as you,
Right.
but they come back to me because I only charge them $60.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you're exactly,
Yeah.
on point. I don't change it to $150, and they know they're getting a big discount
Right.
for something that they're even telling me is better.
And we have a facial response as well, so that's good.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about the facial itching, and we've talked about this on the videos before, but the idea that the itching isn't coming from the outside in, it's coming from the inside out. So we're creating feedback loops in the nervous system where I'm sending an impulse to the brain. The brain is then sending a counter impulse to create a feedback loop of sensation. And that static is what the client feels on the face. It's cerebral static, yeah? So no matter how much they itch, the itch doesn't go away because it's not it's not coming from like a mosquito or a dermatitis. It's literal electricity that they're feeling.
Yeah, it's a real itch.
What?
It's a real.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's real.
Yeah. Some clients, like, I forget to, sometimes in my speech I forget to say things before clients come in, and sometimes just to see, because I'm always very aware of like the psychological implanting. So sometimes I don't tell them about the facial itches, muscle twitches, breathing changes, digestive gurgles. And I've had several clients get angry at me. They're like, they'll keep itching their face and they're like, Sam, did you put some weird oil on the table? Do you use a weird detergent? Like, is the air blowing on my face? And I'm like, no, this is, not only are you itching your face, but you keep itching the facial reflex that corresponds to your complaint. I'm like, that's fun. Like, that's good stuff.
And what are you doing there?
Same pelvic area, but the point is moving so much better. Like, I'm not needing to stay at all on this side. So I'm walking down the dorsal valleys. Oh, that's a little stuck. That's a little stuck.
So just as a side note, those of you who know Craig Cohen, or did know him, made custom orthotics. And that left foot, I kept having to send it back. You know, it was just little, and he had me do a video of me walking. Just made a couple little shifts on that left foot. I never really understood it, because all my sensation is always on the right.
Mm-hmm.
But when Casey went to that left quad yesterday.
And now we're deviating from technique a little bit. Instead of just walking the valley once, I'm needing to pump a little bit. So we're doing a little bit of a pumping to facilitate some flow in that space. Just because that's where we're at.
It does feel like it needs it here. Man, the pressure's not.
Playing the feet.
Like music. Orchestra.
He's hearing some kind of music.
So, well, and that's like, the body is like, no, this. I'm like, okay, that. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Are we gonna see you dancing when you watch the YouTube videos?
No. Okay, now it's just below the shoulder reflex. And it's out. Okay. And metatarsal shake. And then onto the ball of the foot. Chest lung reflexes, walking 3 times each in line with each toe.
Nice going.
It's like an obstacle course.
I know.
Okay. So we have a second point, for those of you who are keeping track. We held a point very similar to this on the other foot as well. And this is just really deep into the chest lung territory, because it's in 2-2. It's a very emotional spot as well. But just the body is saying, like, I have a little bit of a thing here, so we're just gonna hold this thing here. Nothing too crazy.
Feels on my foot.
Oh, feels like a throbbing
No, like.
or pulsing?
Yeah.
Wave, like a wave.
Like between a tingle and a pulse.
Yeah, and I'm not doing anything, which is really interesting because you've seen me be very active on some points, and this one I'm like, nope, don't need to do anything. And the client reports like, I don't feel you doing anything, but I feel you doing something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Like body said, nope, I'll take care of it for you. You don't need to work so hard on this one. Okay. You.
Don't say that out loud, right?
No. No, but I can't turn it off at this point.
Oh my God.
Okay, so what I've done is I'm holding the point with my thumb, but then I'm using the natural weight of my hands to fold the top of the foot onto my pressure.
So you're underneath the fourth toe, Sam?
In between third and fourth. Kind of. Yeah, it's just weird. It's actually asking me to dig my nail in a little bit into that tissue, bless you. Which is strange. I never like doing nail work, but sometimes the body's like, I just need you to poke it. Like, just do it, weirdo.
Doesn't feel pokey.
Doesn't feel pokey, yeah, but the nerve is like, I need something sharp right here. Like, okay, fine.
Do you ever use tools?
Never tools. Tools are the devil. Never tools. I get it. Like, I understand that some therapists use tools and that's totally a part of their practice and nothing against them. For me personally, reflexology is a touch modality. I don't use gloves. I don't use tools. I can't. It's against the way that the body has told me how to practice. God, it's just what is that? It literally wants me to take my nail and scrape it. I'm like, oh, that's so weird.
Perfect for demonstration purposes.
Yeah, I don't do half of this stuff, which is so strange.
Just so we're clear, Sam said to me, you'll be the demo, okay?
Yeah.
I couldn't barely get up from the chair.
Right. I always pick the weak sheep.
Why not?
But even like during classes, I'll say, especially because each of the weekends that I host at the Institute, which all of you can drop in, by the way. So if you ever want to take a weekend with me over in Tampa and just like have a vacation, you totally can. Just drop in on a weekend, because they're every month, regardless of who shows up or not. And so I'll ask, like, if we have a particular system for the weekend, like this last weekend was the digestive system. And I'll ask the group, I'm like, anybody struggling with digestive issues? Like, we'll call people out and say, look, you're clearly hurting. Let's work on you. Yeah.
Could be more real than that.
Exactly. I mean,
that's awesome.
And part of it is, you want to make people feel better, especially your own students. But we also want to see how reflexology works in real time. Which is always super fun. This is not. Yeah, so this is the stomach stuff. Yeah, and we just, no.
How would this work for homework giving? I mean, do you give people homework?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. For Julie Beth, the way that the bones are moving, the way that they're not moving, the way that all of this is starting to play out. I mean, the big thing, although mobility is a really big issue right now, the thing that really needs to happen is yoga. Like, the body needs to get into gentle positions that are supported where it can self-adjust. And so what I'm going to suggest to her is, we had a nice little dorsal twitch on the ankle. What I'm going to suggest to her is to investigate some very gentle yoga, even though it's difficult for the body to move. It doesn't need to be fast. It doesn't need to be like a normal practice, but just the idea that her getting on the floor on her knees in a child's pose would probably be one of the best things for her, because it's grounding, it's stretching, it's easy, and it's a posture that's very surrendering. Yeah. But the idea that the body has clamped and it needs to be worked open in a very safe way, and yoga allows you to do that really nicely.
I think she can manage that. She is an
Yeah.
instructor,
I mean,
a yoga instructor.
I brought my yoga mat.
there you go.
Julie, that's
You don't need a mat.
I don't need a mat. I don't need no stinking mat.
Oh, you got that out of my head. I don't need no thinking mat.
Right, and that's the thing, like, especially when clients come in and they're like, I can't move, this pain is so intense. I'm like, you can't move quickly.
Right.
Yeah, but you can still move. And sometimes giving clients permission to say, look, you going to an hour spin class might not be the medicine right now, but that doesn't mean that you should just sit on the couch and rest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes the body needs an appropriate level of movement, something safe, something stable, something easy. But you not making the decision to move can sometimes be your own downfall.
So me getting a whole bunch of tingles right now means you're speaking to me?
I guess.
Get off the sofa?
Sure. Let's say that.
Sitting is just the worst thing.
Sitting is the new smoking. That's what they
Wow.
say.
One of
I hadn't heard
our
that.
instructors
Oh, yeah?
calls sitting 90 degrees of death.
90 degrees of death. Oh, I love it. That's
Thank you,
funny.
Bob.
Thing.
And,
Oh,
I mean, it's true, and so
You know
when I'm
Bob?
sitting, it's hard for me to get up, that startup pain.
Bob spoke at the conference,
Oh, cool.
which will be happening Labor Day weekends 2020.
Yay.
Very
And you're
excited
live.
for round 2.
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Barbecue I gotta go to.
Exactly. And another stomach stuff. See, and here's the really interesting point is this time we're not finding as much joint stuff, we're finding a lot of stomach stuff. Yeah, which we did not find on the other side. We blew through the digestive reflexes, except for that one point in the lower, but this is very different. And again, the tissue is getting rather cold.
Now, your thumb from the other hand, is that doing
It's
anything or
not doing
just a
anything.
hold?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just I tell my students, place your hand somewhere compassionate. And that's kind of what we're doing, is we're just letting the body feel our presence without needing to really do anything. Okay, now we go into lower digestive. That's not okay. So
I expected a lot of ick for him.
okay, so we're around the proximal head of the fifth metatarsal, so it's very, very much knee stuff. I'm just not okay with it. Like, I'm not okay with the level of congestion. I'm not okay with the way that the bones are moving and not moving. Like, it's just things are in the wrong place. Like she's a Mrs. Potato Head that just got put together the wrong way. And that's fine. But that's what it feels like. There are tight places that should be loose. There are loose places that should be tight, and it's just not. It's not where it needs to be. So.
If the person has a side that is longer than the other, would that
I'm very skeptical of side length because that's a big measurement technique that I've seen done incorrectly a billion times. Just because one foot comes forward on the table, or you measure somebody's leg length, their femur length, and it's longer, doesn't mean that they're immediately broken.
No, I was thinking kind of like when you have certain kinds of back issues, it kind of affects your height and your...
But that's also because the pelvis is twisted. Yeah, so it's a pelvic issue, not a leg length issue. And that's what a lot of people fail to see, is they're like, oh, leg length is off, let's just put a lift in a shoe. Like, honey, you clearly don't know where that twist, where that length is coming from. And there are people who have legitimate leg length differences, and that's a very different story. But at the same time, we need to understand that most people have muscular compensation issues, not leg length issues.
I was thinking about someone that had, what's it called? Between the back is,
Scoliosis?
Yeah, yeah, and eventually the back kind of twists. or the pelvis twist, something twist, kind of twist. So. Thank you.
Does it matter if somebody just ate before when you
No.
No, it doesn't matter.
What's really fascinating about the digestive response with reflexology is I've had clients who have just come from lunch, clients who have skipped lunch, clients who skipped breakfast, ate breakfast, had a protein bar for breakfast, just had dinner, on their way to dinner, like all stages of eating. And the ones who always get the digestive gurgles are the ones who have digestive issues.
Interesting.
It's hilarious because I have several clients where the minute they hit the table and we hit solar plexus, the stomach just goes and they're like, here we go again, and it'll be that way throughout the whole session.
Wow.
And the body is just so vocal with that area.
What happens if you as practitioner, your gut is talking back? That's what happened to me with my
Yeah,
client.
and it's interesting because it's almost like a conversation between the guts, I find. So I'm not embarrassed about it. I think it's really interesting. But like if your gut is talking to you and it's not responding to the other person's gut, then maybe you're hungry or maybe you have a deeper digestive thing, But most of the time when we get a gut response, it's because it's necessary.
Do you find that a lot of people deny it? I mean, when I ask, and they're like, no, everything's good.
Yeah, everything's fine, everything is normal. But if they're and sometimes it's a deeper conversation opportunity, but that could turn into at the end of the session me saying, hey, it seems like some of your issues may be digestive related. I would suggest you seek out a dietitian or a nutritionist. Something really simple like that. Just saying, based on how the body responded, it seems like the gut is a hotbed for you. Why don't you try working with that particular style of holistic care? Whether or not they want to admit it or not is not my prerogative. I'm not here to interrogate them and make them confess. My job is to only see what the body is saying and notice the responses, and then work with the client to achieve a balance.
Like that. Work with body.
In Julie's case, is it possible because she has pain, but the digestive is where the second manifestation is occurring
It could.
because of the pain?
It could.
Then I'll just tell you no. It's way deeper than that.
Same place.
So this is sacral spine, which we didn't find as active on the other side, and the body specifically said hands off. So I'm doing it one-handed.
And are you still doing 3 fingers?
I'm really resting on the middle and fourth right now. My index and fifth are not necessarily super active.
And it's tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, and I'm not moving at all. So her body's responding.
Thank you.
There's a little bit of leg rotation there. That was nice. Ah, digestive gurgle. Lovely. Huzzah. Yeah, body's really taking its time with this one. Oh, this is fun. It's like watching an onion peel before you. It's like watching an onion peel before you before it goes in the deep fryer and becomes a bloomin' onion from Outback. Like that level of delicious. Okay, and it's done.
And Julie, your facial features have relaxed a little bit through this.
Yeah, and second stomach gurgle.
Tissue handy.
I'm surprised that I'm not, bawling, but it's easy for me to lay down. Don't get me wrong, it's hard for me to accept.
That's the part.
It's like, I get paid back. That's what I feel like. But at the same time, I know that by not allowing somebody to give to me, it takes away from their wanting to give.
Right.
So, I know that. It's just that, you see, Sam, I'm a double Taurus. That's my main.
That's
He's like, I only know that when we started.
My Libra rising is my only saving grace.
oh my god. So double Taurus. So okay. So now we're gonna.
Oh no, you started something
now. Double Taurus with a Venus with a Libra rising means that Venus is the ruler of both her ascendant as well as her moon and sun placement, which is crazy town. And we need to know the location of that Venus, like stat, because if it's in a detriment house, that would explain a lot. But also, when we think of somebody who has a Venus ruled chart, they're going to be dealing with fluid issues, they're going to be dealing with emotion issues, they're going to be dealing with relationship issues, they're going to be dealing with all of the touchy-feely stuff, because that's what Venus rules. Both Libra and Taurus indicate that in the chart. So when we look at a pain profile that's Venusian in nature, it's coming from just as much the emotional area as it might be the physical area. I'd say it's a 75-25. Like there might have been a 25% initial injury or stress pattern, but it's a 75% emotional reaction, because that's how she works.
And she's agreeing totally.
And so, that's way out of the scope of practice of this class. But just the idea that when you study other modalities and you study other forms of assessment, when I hit the gallbladder, I know some of you in the room with traditional Chinese medicine training were like, gallbladder, ligaments, wood element, hypertension in the back, that's where you went, But at the same time, we could look at medical astrology, we could look at Ayurveda, we could look at all these different systems and find bunny trails to the source. And we all end up in the same place, but there's a reason and a method to the madness that kind of you need to follow in order to get there. Okay.
Resentment.
What?
Resentment. Water too.
Yeah, resentment, anger. Yeah. Gallbladders, so funny thing about gallbladder's major energetic function is to assist and ask for help.
That's the thought I was
Yeah, so that's fun. Yeah. Because gallbladder is literally the assistant to the liver, the major general of the body. So when we look at people who have chronic gallbladder issues, it's let me do everything for you, let me not accept help for myself. That's gallbladder in a nutshell.
That's what happened to me.
Think of your clients who had them removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, me.
And it's like boom, 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 Danny, Tim, so-and-so.
Wow.
And that's like when we study reflexology, it's excellent and it's a modality in and of itself. So right now we're also in the hip sciatic reflex on the other side, around the lateral malleolus. But when we study other modalities to complement our reflexology, that's when fun stuff starts to happen. That's when we're like, oh wow, that makes total sense on a whole new level. I never thought of it that way. These different theories and these practices that have been around for thousands of years, they might have something to add to your current understanding of how the body actually works. Okay, so we're finishing up. We're going to the dorsal ankle pump, and then we have cuboid notch and plantar surface of the calcaneus, and then we're done. A little bit extra credit here.
Everything is happening in our favor.
Yes.
Good or bad.
Good or bad.
Everything is happening. There's no judgment. There's no good and there's no bad. It is. Did you just make up this little ankle pumping?
No, it's part of the routine. It's just the points. The points don't want me to go.
And your fingers on the top of your foot, is that in a specific place or just?
Yeah, it's it was right in between these two flexor tendons or extensor tendons rather.
And that's kind of near the liver points, too, on the meridian.
Yeah. I mean, we could call that reproductive. We could call that deep pelvic. We could call that so many different things. So now we're on to the cuboid notch on the other side. So again, proximal head of the fifth metatarsal going up the quads. Apex of triangle going down the hamstrings. Going across the bottom of the calves.
It's pretty clear isosceles triangle, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So proximal head of the fifth metatarsal, which is the knee reflex going up the quads. Apex going down hamstrings. Edge of calcaneus, and then going across the bottom of the calves.
Are you feeling anything there?
Yeah, not as bad as the other side.
Yeah,
No
that's what I
active
was
points.
wondering.
And then we finish with plantar surface of calcaneus. This is, yeah, there's stuff here though. And there's stuff there that I know I'm going to hit when I go vertically, but I don't skip.
So you just do what you were doing.
Yep, I do exactly what's in the routine next, and I know that I'll get to it, but I don't be like, I'm not going to say, oh, I know there's something there, so let me screw that part of the routine to jump there. Like, no, I just go through it, because you never know. Okay. Switch hands, go vertical, and there it is.
And you're doing some of that pull.
Yeah, just a nice little,
rotating.
yeah, just a nice little pull, just saying, hey, how you doing?
Okay, so if she had a heavy foot,
Mhm.
heavy leg, heavy ankle,
Right.
heavy foot, where might you position your hands differently?
This exact same way.
Okay.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter the size or the weight. The bottom hand slightly lifts for leverage,
Right.
and the top hand works the reflexes. You
Okay.
could always switch as, ooh, that's weird. Little static shock in my fourth finger when I hit this point. So we're gonna hold here. See what comes of it. Nope, body says move on, the end. Okay. Whoop, and there's another one. Ooh, and foot is getting super wet.
Fourth finger, which hand?
Fourth finger of left hand. So it's more work in hand. Holding. Holding. It's like the nervous says, the body will be right with you. Please hold. Yeah.
This is a recording.
So you don't do hands or ears, you just stay right with them.
Oh, I do. It's just not as popular. You know, my clients know me for feet, so they come to me for feet. But if clients, like I have the charts on the wall, which is a really big selling point, they're like, oh wow, I didn't know that you did all of these. But clients don't need me to work the feet and the hands and the face and the ears in order to get results. But like if a client comes in, like I've had several clients, family members of other clients where they come in to see me and they say, Sam, you know, I really want to experience what you do because you've helped so many of my friends and family, but I hate my feet getting touched. I'm like, great, we don't need to do feet. They're like, what? I thought reflexology was just the feet. Like, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. You know, clients with severe sinus infections, TMJ, trauma to the ears, trauma to the hands, carpal tunnel. You know, it's all within our wheelhouse, and that's not okay. We're just gonna hit that a couple more times. Single-handedly.
That also frees up time. It frees up time. Like, I do hands or ears with feet, even though my focus is feet. That's what I was taught. So that would free up time.
It could.
To start right off and then to be able to have more time to hold points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you let them choose?
My one rule is I won't do more than 2 extremities in a session.
Right.
So, because I feel like that's overwhelming. So I just let my clients know, like, you can pick 2. You know, we can do hands and feet, we can do face and ears, we can do face and hands, face and feet. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But I won't do more than 2, because if we're jumping from extremity to extremity, then it tends to confuse the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
That's another question is I know we've had this conversation at other conferences. We were taught not to go on the cap. I have since the last conference where, you know, we were told differently. But wasn't that?
So the rule in Maryland has to do more with gliding. Podiatrists actually have started acknowledging the lower leg as part of the anatomy that they serve. So we also we're supposed to thumb walk or be in alignment with that technique, but we certainly can go off the leg.
It depends on your state laws.
True.
It just
That's
really
why I said
depends on-
Maryland.
Yeah, it's just state laws, it's not.
Yeah, I thought it had to do with like massage therapy and being in
Gliding,
committee
or-
and, yeah, whatever.
I actually do like finger walks up, you know.
That's good.
After I'd heard that at that one conference, I thought, well, I'll stay at least within.
Sort of my wall.
Yes.
Okay.
My intention is.
Our final 2 points, solar plexus and adrenal. The pulse has improved, not as much as I would like. It's not as strong, but it's definitely stronger. Okay. And then the adrenal.
Not that Sam cares, JB, but how do you feel?
Right, the
She
same
slept.
kind of crap. Lighter, you know, lighter.
More even left to right, right to left.
Yeah, yes. I mean, just the way that my sacrum feels on the table, like, I can't really describe that.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, with clients, especially clients who don't know their body very well, you know, they might describe the effects in abstract terms. It's not your job to say, you know, well, what do you mean by that? You know, because oftentimes they don't even know what they mean by that. You know, so ask them how they're feeling. You know, ask them how they enjoyed the session, or, you know, if there was anything that they still had questions, comments, concerns about. But, you know, don't force them to logically justify their experience. Okay, cool.
Right.
Thank you for watching, everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you.